So, and then we're gonna have a little conversation together, offer you some strategies for us getting grounded and being principled in this time. So let's see. Let me tell you about a few of the features on here. So I know some folks are familiar with Zoom, other people are first timers. So we're gonna be using this chat features quite a bit. So if you look at the bottom of your Zoom box, in the bottom left corner, you'll see the microphone mute button. Everyone is muted by us right now. We will have a question and answer section at the end where you can, we'll unmute people who have questions. But for now, you can feel free to make all the noise in your space that you want. If you need to praise the Lord, go for it, because we got you on mute. To the right of that, we've got our video feature. As most of you all, I see some beautiful faces. You're already on that. Go over 1, 2, 3, actually 4 icons past that. You'll see a chat icon. We're going to be using that quite a bit. You might already see some chats already happening. We had someone, yeah, I think it's still in. We had someone trolling this page and asked an inappropriate question. We're trying to figure, our tech folks are trying to figure out how to take that question off. Anyway, nothing we can't handle. I spoke to my 98-year-old grandmother the other day and asked her how she feels about these times, and she told me not to get distracted. So I think that's a distraction there. But you see that feature there. That chat window that's totally you all's zone to say hey to somebody who you might see, ask us questions, and also we're going to be using it for a little roll call in a moment. Next to the chat, actually just to the left of the chat, or right in the middle, you might see a icon that says manage participants. If you click on that, it shows you all the folks that are in this space. You should also see an icon underneath the list of people in the room that says a green circle that says yes. If everyone sees that, can you please click yes? We're gonna do a little roll call in a moment. I wanna make sure everyone, yeah, there they are. Whoop, whoop, whoop. Go ahead, tech savvy people. Excellent. You can go ahead and click yes again to click it off. Right. If you click no, it'll just say no. So we're not doing that for now, but we will in a moment. Great. I just want to make sure everyone could access that and has understanding. If you are lost and not finding what I'm talking about, feel free to drop a question in the chat, and myself or one of the folks running tech can help you out. So I'm curious to know who is in the space before we get started. Let's see. So if you live in the South or identify as a Southerner, go ahead and click that yes button. Let's see how many Southerners we have up in this space. I guess I'll click it too. Trying to get a sense of where folks are calling in from. Excellent, excellent. Thank you, I appreciate that. You can click that off. If you identify as being trans or non-binary or two-spirit, go ahead and click that link, that yes. And of course, any questions you don't feel comfortable with, don't click nothing. It's all about your consent. Awesome. Any women or femme identified folks in the space? Go ahead and click that yes. Okay, the future is femme. Thank you. You can click that off. Any folks up in here practicing healthy masculinity? Go ahead and click that yes. If you're not, we got resources for you. And that's another conversation. Awesome, awesome. Great. Can click that off. Any folks in here identify as bisexual or asexual? Either one. Go ahead, roll call. Where are you at? Click your yes. I know those are very different. We're just gonna roll call them both. Awesome. Welcome, welcome. You can click that off. Any folks in here identify as Black, African diasporic, etc.? Awesome. Welcome, siblings. Any folks identify as Latinx? Go ahead and click that yes. Awesome. Welcome. Any folks identify as indigenous to Turtle Island? Or expand that to, no, we'll leave it at Turtle Island. Awesome. Any immigrants we got up in the space? Awesome. Welcome. Any API folks we got up in the space? Welcome, welcome. Any Arab folks we got up in the space? This is a way to welcome everybody as well as seeing where our gaps might be. Cool. We got any folks who do any organizers, activists in the space? Awesome. Y'all don't forget to rest, please. The organizers in the space. Thank you for doing the work you do. Don't forget to rest. Thank you. Any other people do wellness or healing work in any capacity? Beautiful. And if you see people who do things you do, go ahead and send them a private chat. Great. Any academics, teachers, people shaping the minds of the future? Beautiful. Thank you for the work you do. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Any clergy, preachers, pastors, or you know, people of the cloth. No people of the cloth. All heathens in this space. Just kidding. Sweet. Great. And if you, sweet. Okay, cool. I see some. Great. Thanks, y'all, for helping each other. Cool. So if you have other identities that you're proud of, you want to name, go ahead and drop them in the chat for the purpose of naming who you are and whose you are and making connections. But we're going to go ahead with the agenda. Another feature that we're going to be using in this session is screen sharing, which I'm about to do right now in a moment as we open up this conversation. First of all, I wanted to just pick apart the title of this and talk about why we wanted to do a session on getting grounded and being principled, which was also a blog that you all can read that I'll be toggling over to in a moment to share some of our strategies. But the purpose is to help give folks strategies to come back to themselves, to center themselves, to give themselves choice, especially in this moment where there's multiple forms of pressures and stressors around our own personal health and wellness, around the health and wellness of our families, our communities, globally, and quite frankly, our role as a species on this planet. And with those multiple pressures and stressors, it means it's going to be that much harder for us to act from a centered place and feel centered, and that much easier for us to act from our trauma shaping that precious amygdala back there, that much easier for us to work from a place of fight, flight, freeze, appease, or dissociate. Let's make this interactive again for a moment. If you folks who have felt like an overwhelming sense of fight lately, like you keep, I'm going to use myself as an example. When I feel afraid, as I have in the past couple weeks, that translates into anger. So I have felt very angsty. I have wanted to pick fights on internet about people who I feel are being unprincipled in this moment. Other folks who identify as that, go ahead and click yes in that chat box there, or in the manage participants. Yeah, thank you for that. If you have felt overwhelming anxiety and that has caused you to want to sort of like curl up and hide under your bed or hide under the covers and flee and just kind of like block out the world, if you feel comfortable saying, yes, that's the place I've been in, go ahead and click that. Know that you're not alone. You see other folks are struggling in those same ways. And everyone can see everybody else's check marks, right? Okay, cool. If you're someone who your safety shaping is an escape or disassociate, and you're like, pandemic? What pandemic? It's all good, baby. Downplay. Go ahead and click that. And none of these are no judgment, no shame. We all show up to these things in different ways. I could click a few of them. I should be clicking a few of them. I just can't multitask that well. I have probably felt each of these at some point. Awesome. If your safety shaping is to freeze, which is almost like dissociate, but looks a little different, and you're just kind of like, what the hell is happening? Just 2 weeks ago, I was just at a party with all my people, so many swift changes at once. I feel immobile. I don't know what the best step to do is right now. Go ahead and click that yes if you've experienced that. I also appreciate y'all's vulnerability in this exercise and electronically clicking a very real experience to potential strangers on this platform. I appreciate y'all. Thank you. And I think the only one I didn't talk about was I think I didn't talk about flight. If your response has been to like, what airline tickets are cheap? Let me get the hell out of here. Or let me just, escape in some other way. Our addictions don't stop just because there's a pandemic. So, if you struggle with addictions and you're finding that this time is harder to stay present and not escape, or other maybe not named addictions, but other sort of pulling factors that make you not want to actually face what's happening in this moment, go ahead and click that. I appreciate it. So, so another reason why I wanted to talk about staying principled was I think that moments like this really do bring out our so-called true colors. I don't know if that's an appropriate term, but it's sort of like what we're really working with. I had a soccer coach once that said, college recruiters were coming to see us, getting ready for like NCAA play, and he was like, I hope y'all lose today. We're like, what? He's like, no, recruiters want to see how you lose. Of course, if you win and everybody, it's all good, but your character comes out when you're not doing well, when there's crisis, trauma, impact, transitions. So these times are really showing us like what our real values are and what we care about. And to that extent, it's actually a moment for us to take whatever shifts may have already been called for before this moment and really get up close and personal to them, get really clear on where we're headed, where we want to be headed, and what we care about, and make those shifts. So that's the purpose of this call, is to help folks get grounded, get focused on what we really care about, and maybe use this moment to make necessary shifts in our own patterns and behaviors, how we relate to each other, and how we treat this amazing planet that we've been gifted. So I'm gonna toggle to, I'm gonna share my screen now so that we can go over some of these tips and strategies for staying grounded. Nope, those are my notes. Stop sharing. So the first lesson is patience, which I'm gonna exhibit. I know how I gotta do this. I have to pull it up first. Bam. Now let me share my screen here. There we go. Everyone see that? It says be compassionate. Thumbs up if y'all can see that. Yeah, great. So I'm gonna start, this is from the blog that maybe one of my colleagues can drop into the chat at this moment, but I'm gonna start with compassionate first. I was struck at one point during COVID-19 at how people were talking about the death toll that is continuing to accrue, as though these aren't human lives, as though there aren't actual souls and family members that we're talking about. Also noticing how people are even talking about people who are testing positive, people who are under, you know, surveillance and quarantine. And I had yet to hear much compassion for the people who have been most impacted by this pandemic. And so the first tip is around the compassion part, is, and which relates to being principled, is just to honor the lives that are already lost. And not just the lives lost, but the people who were those caretakers and family members. And by extension, people who are currently actually quarantined. To be clear, we keep using the word quarantine interchangeably with isolating and social distancing. They're actually very different things. I care less about the semantics of the language, but just to be clear, quarantine means you cannot see anybody but medical professionals. Even your family can't touch you. We know that touch is a human need. It's an actual need. We need it as much as water and food. It's why, you know, babies in the NICU have those little gloves in their incubator. It's why solitary confinement is so inhumane. We actually need touch. So I just want to offer some compassion for people who are feeling awful, like skyrocketing fevers and all kinds of symptoms, not to mention just the fear, and nobody can touch them for 2 weeks, except for people administering medical care. I also want to honor the people administering medical care, all of our first responders and all the different folks in the medical industry, as well as all the different jobs and people who can't stop working because they're providing our foods and other sustainable things that we need to sustain ourselves. I do think that people in professions that still have to go to work are starting to be honored more, for sure. Seen a lot of talk and memes, but those people most impacted with the virus inside of them, I have not heard much talk about. Just like, damn, you know, it seems like we're mostly afraid of them or afraid of their experience than we are showing compassion. So just wanted to shout that out. Of course, checking in on people who are less resourced and more at risk. We know who some of those identities are in terms of the elderly, people with chronic conditions, those with compromised immune systems, first responders, etc. But it could mean people with who are losing their income right now compared to people who are able to just go home, work from home. It could be parents. I forgot to shout out parents. Everyone who is caring in any capacity for children right now, shout out to you. I took care of nephews for 4 days, homeschool and everything. And I just can't, wow, a lifetime of doing that. Y'all are the real heroes. So, you know, if you're not a parent or if you're not caring for little ones right there, maybe that's a resource. Your time might be a resource that you can lend to folks that, hey, let me read to your kid. Let me do a story hour so you can go take a nap, you know? So when I say, when the recommendation here is not capitalistic resources, it might be money. That's the third point here, donate. Our original, in decolonizing resources and funding, we got to get back to original resources, which we all have. We all have skills and gifts and talents that in this moment are so helpful. So if you can read a story to a kid to relieve a parent, if you're a singer songwriter and you can have a little online personal concert for your friends, those are original resources. So, you know, as we're trying to be right sized, as in how much we're caring for ourselves, how much we're caring for others, the invitation is just to get creative with what your resources are that are beyond actual coin and capital. And then finally, if you do have a little bit more access and capital, there's all sorts of mutual aid sites out there. It's almost a little overwhelming. The need is so great. So, you know, if you're able to drive around and drop off food, donate, etc., of course, the invitation is there. And also just to reiterate that you can get creative with your resources. Let me scroll up to the next set of tips. So the compassion can happen, you know, that's kind of an outward facing thing. In terms of inward facing work, being mindful of panic and anxiety, and a lot of folks click the yes button when I asked if people have been feeling anxious. That is just to validate that that's a very, very understandable and rational reaction in times of uncertainty and swift shifts. Swift changes, period, are scary. Uncertainty is scary. Not having control or knowing what you can control is also very scary. So all your feelings of panic and anxiety are hella rational. And here's some tips. The first one is just temporarily stop intaking information. I know that there's a certain amount of information is also powerful and helpful to decrease anxiety sometimes, but it's all within reason and relatively speaking. So I found myself sometimes just getting drowned in all of the articles about the pandemic, from the actual science of it, to the transmission of it, to the numbers that are growing, to my local city's controls over like which stores are open and things like that. So the invitation is just to like take in that type of information only a certain amount of time per day, not all day, unless you're like, I don't know, it's maybe your job is to keep ahead of that, but still just take a break and think about something else for a moment. Secondly, taking a breath cannot be underestimated. This is sort of the oldest human form of resilience, is our breath. There's all types of scientific evidence that proves that it does actually help us like make better decisions, calm sort of that amygdala part of the brain that we were talking about, and bring back in the cortisone in our brain that tells us, cortisone basically when it gets reintroduced, it tells everything in your system, it's okay. So taking a breath, an intentional breath, a couple of them, really helps with that. And again, all sorts of cultures and healing modalities encourage this as well, from breath to Buddhism to it's just sort of the oldest human way of taking care of ourselves. This next strategy comes directly from the psychiatry, psychotherapy world, which I do still pull from sometimes. We're not gonna throw the baby out with the bathwater. But it's essentially, if you do feel yourself panicking, especially if you're really deep into a panic attack, naming 5 things you can see, 4 things you can touch, 3 things you can hear, 2 things you can smell, 1 thing you can feel. Now, I can't remember all that normally, anytime actually, much less if I'm on the verge of a panic attack. So the invitation here is to maybe cut and paste those, put them in your phone, tape them up on your refrigerator, put them somewhere where you can find it if you are getting anxious or on the verge of a panic attack. And also the thing is, it is less important that you do the numbers with the senses. If you name 5 things you can touch and see and hear or feel, that's fine. You don't have to worry about, damn it, I named 3 things I can smell, but I was supposed to name 5 things I can smell. It's okay. You know, don't get too white supremacist patriarchal thinking with it. It's not about the order exactly about it. It's more about that you're presencing your sensations and your emotions and your senses to help calm the nervous system to come back to yourself. There's a lot of other strategies. Keeping like a rubber band on your wrist and snapping it helps bring sensations back and center you and presence you. And then finally, this list could be exhaustive, by the way. So this is just a few. Finally, this is from, again, old human knowledge, but I'm going to credit Dr. Emoto of Japan and his book, The Secret Life of Water, which he proves, as many cultures already knew, that water is life, that the energy that we put into water changes the molecular structure of the water, and therefore that water that we put in our body impacts us. So The Secret Life of Water is a book where he said a bunch of words in water, then tested the molecular structure. Saying positive words into the water changes the structure in one way. Saying negative words into the water changes the molecular structure another way. You drink that water, it's going to impact you what you say. So the invitation is just be really intentional with these again, these are original resources that we all can, most of us can access some kind of clean water. And so, you know, being intentional with your water drinking, not just for hydration, not just for washing potential viruses down and having them get deadened into your stomach lining, which happens, but also just the actual healing power of water. We are 80% water. Our earth is 80% water. Mini wachoni, right? So that's the last one. Again, if you're having questions about any of this, please drop it in the chat. I can't see it at the moment. We're going to come back to it. I'm going to move to our next set of strategies. Get moving around. So, you know, it's all about balance and center. So while part of the tips are to pause and be still and rest, the other part is also to get moving around. The common denominator is intentionality, you know, being intentional with your stillness as well as your movement. So the get moving around is, a lot of cities are still allowing people to take walks, and, you know, parks are open. So if you have mobility, if you have the mobility to take a walk outside of your home and it's okay with what's going on in your city, please try and do this every day. If you can't because of your own personal mobility or the restrictions in your city, you can move around your house. If you have mobility issues that don't allow you to even move about in your house, there's a ton you can do right from your chair or your bed. Here's just a few. And here's a cute graphic by our Liz Williams, our resident artist on staff at Campaign for Southern Equality. And so a few of them are just, you know, bringing aliveness to our feet and hands helps actually our whole body come into alignment, because those are our phalanges are like the tips of our bodies. So tapping the top of the head while tapping your feet helps bring aliveness in our length. You know, stretching your arms out and then doing the jazz fingers at the end helps bring aliveness in our width. You know, moving around our ankles and wrists and our feet, rolling our shoulders forward and back. It's not only helps with movement and circulation, but it helps with our alignment in every dimension of our bodies to help us come back to our center, come back to ourselves, so that we can act from choice and intentionality rather than automatic trauma-based responses. So some kind of movement every day, even if it's doing this, is very recommended. If you do have more mobility, there's a ton of free online exercise and yoga classes happening right now. So many that they're almost exhaustive. If folks need help with finding some of this, please email us, drop it in the chat. We have a lot of resources at our hands. And there's a lot of great people out there doing fitness and yoga things online. So yeah, get moving around. Last set of tips before we move it to the question and answer section is, I'm gonna have to close my shade, is get connected and creative. So yeah, so what does connection look like during times of isolation? I want to say that at least 2 of these tips and a lot of the tips are based on the assumption that people have internet access. If folks don't have internet access, they're probably not on this webinar, but I am mindful that not everybody does. So I'm trying to offer some that don't require that, or maybe limited access. So if you do, again, there's a ton of free online classes. I didn't mean to be redundant, because in the previous set of tips, we talked about online yoga and exercise classes. For this one, there is a ton of there's all these Ivy League schools offering these free classes. Child, I started taking a free neuroscience class, which I love, but I'm also just kind of like, y'all could have made these free before. Anyway, there's a lot of things free now that could have been cheaper free before, but that's another webinar. Please take advantage of it. There's a ton of any skill from knitting to I need to find an online barbering class, to be honest, but there's a ton of free online things happening now that I highly recommend. And let's see if we can keep some of that more accessible past this moment. You know what I'm saying? Organize your closet, read that book you never got to. Also remember to rest. There's a great meme that's being viral about this time. You don't need to write the greatest bestseller during this time. If you're called to, great. Also, just don't forget to rest. Everything in moderation. Finally, yeah, if you do have internet access, it's a great time to connect with folks that you would normally see in person, or might not see except for once a year in person anyway. So that could be just a Zoom chat as you see here, or it could be doing something collectively. I have a date with a friend. We love The Wiz. We're gonna co-watch The Wiz together. Yeah, maybe you got a friend that knows how to do beadwork and they could teach you that online. You could cook a meal together. Basically, y'all screens are up just like this. You're talking as you're, whipping in the kitchen, so to speak. So these are just a few tips. Again, everything in moderation. It's all about balance. I'm gonna stop sharing my screen, and we're gonna kick into our question and answer section. Let me go over here in the chat and see. Oh, I see all kind of resources being dropped. Oh, I forgot to mention that we're recording this. So we're gonna send out the link to the recording tomorrow, probably sometime before the week is out, so that y'all can see this again, or any of these links, any of these resources here in the chat. They will be available. I might need to rely on Allison, my esteemed tech person, right now to help.
I've already done it. If you want to ask a question, all you have to do is unmute it.
What's that, Allison? Were you saying something, Allison?
I've given everybody the ability to unmute themselves so they can ask questions now.
Okay, cool. Feel free to speak up if you have a question. Let us know your name, where you come from, and pronouns. This whole format of speaking up on a webinar, it's hard for me, and I'm an extrovert. So if you do have some trepidations about just jumping in there, you can still drop your questions in the chat. For those of you who don't have any issues, feel free to mute yourself and speak now. These are some great resources.
Well, you want us to just talk or raise our hands? What's the process?
Oh, no, you can talk. You can go for it.
Hi, Holiday. I love
Hello,
you.
Savannah.
Thank you for this space.
You're welcome.
I just had something happen right before I got on this call that I realized I don't necessarily have the resources to deal with. So I've been super organized and together. I've got my food resources. I'm dropping off alcohol for pregnant people. I was feeling very prepared. I'm in California. We're under like very serious shelter in place. We flattening the curve. I was fine. Then I went on the internet.
Mm,
That was my first problem.
yeah.
For the first time, before I'd been like, okay, everybody's dealing with this differently. But as I was seeing just today, somebody circulating something that was essentially like, this is just the flu, like just kind of minimizing type language.
Yeah.
And for me, I felt like a really intense, like upswell of anger
Yeah.
that kind of felt like it came out of nowhere. And part of it was like, are you looking at the data? Like my partner is an ER doctor. Like part of it was here, but part of it was, I think, a very different, just opened the anger, you know what I'm saying, channel. And it
Yeah.
really overwhelmed me. And so I stepped back and I didn't respond for a little while, but I'm just wondering, like, anger is not something that comes up a lot for me. I don't have a lot of strategies for it. I feel like I go around it in different ways, and that's becoming less doable. So anything around like rage, especially around this particular virus and how people are protecting me, each other, our communities, our elders, I don't know.
Yeah, absolutely. Um, anger comes very easy to me. So I'm well versed in it. Um, yeah, I think the biggest question that feels most resonant when I have battled with anger doing all this for very similar reasons, people not taking it serious, which feels super disrespectful for the people who uh, who have lost their lives, are waiting for a diagnosis, or who are more at risk, and the people who are doing all this extra work to keep, healthcare workers in all of this. It feels disrespectful to all of those people. So the question that has become most helpful in those moments is like, that question about like, what am I trying to do right now? How am I using this moment? What do I care about? I also have had some anger around some of my wealthier community members who are like, don't ask me if we weren't friends before this pandemic, we ain't friends, don't ask me for money. Whereas like other people in my community are like overextending themselves to be there for other people. So I think getting really good with like how would respond. I don't know if your anger pushes you to try to respond to such whatever is making you angry, but before responding, I would ask like, what am I trying to get out of this exchange? Knowing that these are the moments that we are most likely to turn on each other, most likely to beef because of those extra pressures and stressors that are at play. If you're not someone who's tempted, so that could help you just sort of be like, let me handle this myself versus like, going outward or addressing the person. If you're not someone who's prone to address it anyway, and it's just kind of like swirling inside of you, again, like making space for it to be there. There is plenty of space for righteous rage for various things, how our country's handled it, the racism that was involved when we first start hearing about it from China. I mean, there's plenty to be angry at. So, giving yourself the space to just be like, what's really happening? Why am I angry? Where do I feel that in my body? Is my rage in my chest? Is it in my head? And then responding accordingly. Yeah, moving. Like, do I need to dance it out? If it's in my feet, maybe I need to tap it out. Maybe I need to take a run, right? And then thirdly, is the anger a mask for something else? Maybe it's fear that's actually behind it. And so again, just like asking, what am I trying to get out of this? What do I really care about? Where is it existing? And is there something behind it? Great question. Thank you.
Thank you. I really appreciate that piece around disrespect too, because I think there's an element of feeling disrespected, which is different than the fear piece.
Yeah.
piece of like feeling, that is a different piece that I think also is coming up a lot in terms of our responses to other things. So I really appreciate it. Thank you.
Absolutely. Appreciate you. Anybody else want to jump in with a verbal question? I probably at like 5, shortly after 5, we're gonna check the questions in the chat, make sure we're captured all those, but if anyone else wants to jump in verbally, by all means.
Hi, Holiday. I have a question. My name's Noor. I wanted to say thank you so much for this. I really needed to hear this and kind of just walking through to remember what kind of tools I have just here. But I want to ask a question largely because I work at a research center, but do a lot of work with K through 12 youth, as well as university students. And a lot of things that have been coming up are the pressures that they've been feeling by the universities or their teachers not having these same expectations of them. So, you know, oftentimes not having any compassion around them having parents or family or loved one. I think the rage piece that Savannah brought up was really powerful. And it connects with me very strongly because in the process of hearing all of these stories, I'm working on trying to build a statement to kind of speak from that perspective. Like, and so I guess my question is, how might you help to, how might you guide me and guide us in helping to advocate for kind of youth and families who are kind of navigating these different systems that I think, you know, a lot of these folks who are in power do have that different kind of economic difference. So I had a friend who was talking about how this white professor was just, you know, had no care, and they wrote a whole thing about both of my sister and my family members are both nurses, and they're my main people, and I can't focus on my work. But they're like, well, you need to get it done, and this is what it is, you know. So I guess my 2 questions are like, what kind of advice would you give for folks who are kind of navigating these systems right now? And then also kind of maybe for folks who are trying to be advocates, how do we also negotiate the anger? Because I get mad every new story. I'm upset, like I'm ready. So kind of what does that mean to kind of navigate these spaces? And any advice would be great.
Yeah, I appreciate you. Thank you for the question, Noor. One thing, let me preface this. This is also, I by no means am anybody's expert or have all the answers. I really do want to collectivize the knowledge in this space. So even if I have a question an answer to the questions asked and someone else wants to add something, feel free to add it in the chat or reach out to that person one-on-one to add something. And then in the case of one of these questions, I'm actually going to present other people's because there are teachers in the space. My first thought about, it's interesting. I would frame the question about teachers or people with power still requesting the same things. To me, that reads very much like, you know, I was saying this could be a moment for us to shift how we're living our lives, our practices and behaviors, you know, spending patterns for our own lives, how we treat each other and the planet. This could be a moment where we shift that. And so what I feel like your question is about is people who are really holding tight to the ways, the status quo ways that could potentially have been part of the reason why we're in the situation we're in the first damn place. I'm not about to get into all that of how this started and everything, but for those who are still like holding real strong to those capitalistic, you know, white supremacist patriarchal ways of like profit over people and just, you know, being industrious and producing at the expense of any old thing, everything. I feel like there's some really good things out there. So I'm framing it, but I'm not actually going to answer it very well. I feel like there are really good things out there about like, hey, basically saying everything I just said in a very articulate sort of written way of like, this is teachers. This is a moment to get to know your students in a different way. Be more creative with your lesson plans and your due deadlines and all this. I'm gonna stop running my mouth and in a moment let anybody else on the call who knows of those resources or has maybe more concrete sort of like messaging for educators or messaging for people who would normally be getting things back. And now it's like, you know what, I still am supposed to like be grading papers, but I'm taking this other route. Anybody on this call can speak to that more specifically?
I can holiday if no one minds. Part of what I do at work is I'm involved in some shape or form in most of the programs that we are putting on at CSE, and I go into schools a lot, whether it be K through 12 elementary or taught to college age people who are furthering their education. Most of the time, what I've seen with a lot in the academic world especially is the academia sometimes is populated by a lot of people with privilege who have really good hearts, and they are completely blind to the privilege that they have and that they wield. And so what I usually do is I try to find a common thread with them. And this has come up very recently with some college professors, and brought it up to them that, hey, reminding them that they didn't sign up to teach online. So any of the barriers that they're putting in place aren't just harming themselves, they're also harming their students. And when I've done it that way, it seems to get through oftentimes to the people who are in power in these positions. And you're reminding them that they are also probably frustrated with what they've been stuck with, how they've been told to do their jobs very quickly without any foresight and planning. And so they've got so many people coming at them, they're defensive all the time. And I think it's really easy to get in that place of saying no or being defensive right away. And if I find that path to something that really strikes a chord with their heart about, hey, I see that you're facing difficulties too, then it brings that down. And then you can say, now think about your students and how they didn't sign up for online classes, or how your students may have a lot going on, maybe joblessness in their whole family, maybe homelessness. Maybe some of your students right now are watching your videos in their car on a cell phone, if they're lucky. And then that will bring people around sometimes.
I'd also say, I mean, are there other people waiting to talk about the academic thing?
Go for it.
I hear you saying more so it's not even your students that you need, it's other people, your people you're interacting with, and they're dealing with other teachers and professors. So the vast majority of universities I've seen so far have started to add in some kind of pass-fail option, right? And so I think one of the easiest things to do is say, hey, at these peer institutions, pass-fail is being added either as an option or as a universal. And that's something that fits in the academic box for people who are stuck in the box, and be like, you can advocate for yourself to take this course pass-fail, right? And then on the back end, and other kind of administrative stuff they might have to handle with a proportion of pass-fail courses, but all that shit I think will be handled once the virus gets to where it's going to get. It's going to be clear that we can't stay in the box. But in the meantime, I think pass-fail is a great resource, and I can post some things that just kind of advocate for pass-fail, and then students can use those like, hey, I'm not even going to get into all this with you. I would like to take this course pass-fail, and that can give them a little bit more easefulness. I'm going to tell my students, I've told my students, you're not failing unless you plagiarize, because that's a personal thing for me, but otherwise you could not do anything to fail this class. And kind of just communicating that to them, and I'm running my class this quarter as pass-fail A, because some people really are motivated by the A, and that is part of their coping mechanism. So I don't want to take that away from them, but also be like, hey, if you don't get an A, you know what you're getting? Pass. But I can drop some of that in.
Thank you.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
Yeah, that's so helpful. And then it looks like there might be a link here too. Nora, it also, just to wrap this up, seems like some sort of like language around, encouraging those teachers to be more spacious and like calm the F down, so maybe that all of this plus that resource can help you craft something to dash to those teachers.
Thank you, because it is helping them to youth and students and families to advocate for their needs, but then also for horizontal as well. So like Savannah is a professor who gets it. And then what do you do with the professor who doesn't get it?
Right.
And you're working side by side with that person and then you're hearing from the students and you're hearing from that all of these kind of like re-traumatizing moments are happening. And so how do you potentially usher them into being different and not causing more issues? So I appreciate everyone. Thank you.
For sure.
This is Hazel.
Yeah, go ahead, Hazel.
Wanted to share that link that's posted there, I'm sorry, is not in response to what Noor
okay.
offered. I'm sorry, I just wanted to make sure that I gave credit to for the previous thing that I wrote up there and share a little bit about it. But I do see that someone
next on the
did
queue,
just
right?
post something that is in response to what Savannah and Noor offered. So I want to say that's there. But so what I put there is the American Dream is an individuality project and it is killing us collectively. This is kind of a small excerpt from a two colleagues of mine who wrote this small article in response to the COVID-19 sort of pandemic. And I placed that there because I think to the question that was offered and the pieces of kind of the things that were offered for us to be able to be mindful and grounded in this time, I think what they point to is this need to kind of play between the individual and collective sphere. I think, right, there's the individual aspect of we must individually wash our hands, which I appreciate. And if we leave it up to like, we'll only be good so long as everyone washes their hands, then we actually negate for me, the true fact that it takes community to support one another and to be able to move through this effectively. And so for the folks who are like, oh, it's not that serious, I think those are the people who were still playing with the individuality aspect of it and haven't taken seriously that even if for you, you're doing even if I do everything that I can, y'all should see me walk through these grocery stores, I don't touch a thing. But that, I can only do so much, right? And so I think if I just leave it up to me, I wash my hands, I keep 6 feet, then I continue not to be in relationship with other folks. So I wanted to offer that up in this space. The other thing that I want to offer up is this idea that this time is really pushing us to shift and challenge the systems and the procedures that we've subscribed to for such a long time. And my hope is that when this is over, I'm using real big air quotes, when this is all over, that we don't return to normal, that we don't rush to return to business as usual, that we really try to integrate the learnings, whatever that might look like, and pay attention to the people in the midst of the crisis who have been leading us. Poor people, Black and brown people, Indigenous people, disabled people, queer people have for time immemorial been like, here's the answers. And so I think part of it is how do we take what's happening now, learn from it, and apply it beyond this moment, and don't just return to the systems and processes that we used before. So that's my 2 cents. And I also really apologize that I do have a call at 5 o'clock, so I do need to jump off, but I'm grateful to you, Holiday, and to other leaders in this organization for providing this space. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Hazel. I really appreciate it. Take care.
Bye, y'all.
If we have time, is per my tradition, I'm a fine purveyor of resilience. I love talking about resilience. So if we do have time, we're going to do one more interactive piece at the end. I would love to hear how people, what's something that is shifting in each of y'all that you hope to continue past this moment, in the spirit of not getting back to status quo and not getting back to business as usual, and using this moment to transform ourselves in our ways. But first, let's go ahead and see if we had any other questions. I think, Allison, I appreciate you. Were you kind of like ordering these questions a little bit or something? I saw people were in the queue or something.
Yeah, Hazel was actually, and they were able to get in right before
cool.
they need to leave. So I think we're good.
Sweet. Any other questions out there about any of this? something else Hazel said that reminds me, just in terms of the individualism that is, rampant in our culture, and some examples of people and institutions trying to hold on to that in this moment, and how it doesn't actually work, is that is almost the opposite. So these two extremes of of, again, what we were talking about being right size. So the overextension of like spending most all your time serving others and not leaving much for yourself. The opposite of that is what I feel like Hazel is speaking of, is just this extreme kind of bringing it in. It's all about me. I'm hoarding the food at the grocery store. I got all the toilet paper in my house, whatever, and so just wanted to also name what Hazel was talking about in the spectrum of, how, in somatics, what we call our width, how wide you are, which is the dimension of connection and boundary. So just naming that, again, that too is a balance of like, the invitation is to be critical and try and shift this, but that does not necessarily mean overextend. And also in this moment, there's also the need. I mentioned that some of the mutual aid sites, there's a lot of them, and that for me, sometimes they're overwhelming because there's so many different types of needs. It's not just needs for direct people. There's also people organizing to shift policies, the way things are run. Already been doing that on top of this, right? So people who are organizing against messed up ICE policies are doing that now on top of that, because ICE is requesting some damn face masks to detain people. So what I mean by the needs are great, it's not just like this person is sick and that person can't get to the store. It's also like our movements are also still in motion and in movement. And so the time is very right for overextending yourself, as it is equally right to try to hold on to the only ways that those master's tools, in Audre Lorde's words, it's also right to just hold on to the only ways we know. So again, just naming that balance there. Thank you, Emily. Peace out. Any other questions out there? Cool. Well, then just to wrap up, then I would love to have folks either drop in the chat or say verbally, and I will challenge myself to think of one on the spot of, just the way that you are shifting in this moment and hoping to come out of this a little bit differently. I'll start us off because mine is real simple. There we go. I use too much damn toilet paper. I'm trying to up my zero waste game now and moving forward. Sorry for the typos. There we go. So I wanted to, be as vulnerable as y'all have been and also think of something, and also give an example. It doesn't have to be super macro. I got a little handheld bidet for the first time. I'm like super mindful of how many squares. Little thing, it could be as little as, these are practices that I implement when I've been to countries that are less resourced than the US, countries where you can't flush the toilets. And then I get back to the States and it's right back to overusing, right? So I'm trying to use this moment. Same with like, I don't have like disposable cleaning wipes. I'm using like my spray bottle and towels and bandanas that I could rewash. 20 seconds of washing hands. Are we running the water that long now? Like, you know, so I'm just like all these different sort of like environmental practices that the moment is called for now because we don't have access to the same things. I'm hoping to continue. I'm gonna stop talking and see what y'all got going on. Yes, not wasting food. And then if no one's verbally talking, I'll just read what I see in the chat. Netflix party, cute. What's that about, Tunde?
Hey y'all, Baba Tunde, pronouns in here. So Netflix party is like this new way to watch like Netflix with people, so you can get a group of folks together and have like a view party and like maybe share cocktails, but it's nice to be able to do it with other people so you're not just watching it by yourself, you know?
Love it. I like that. Savannah says, Jackie, that's me. They spend a lot of time outside solo while me and the kid bounce around the house. I also do other grocery hardware pickups. Yes. Was that, Savannah, was that a strategy to moving forward? Or?
No, was that the question? I don't know, the question of JC or Jackie? The person, Jackie, had asked a question.
Oh, okay.
Learned the COVID-19 crisis.
I got you. Okay. Allison says, not wasting food. Absolutely. Yeah. Slow down and dance every day. Yes, Nor. You got any, what you dancing to? Is it the D-Nice, a global party?
D-Nice, Questlove, Ninth Wonder. I'm just checking for all of the like beautiful musicians and DJs. So slowing down for music, slowing down and taking that time, because I've also learned so much. Like they all have all this history and memories and all of that with all the sets. And so it reminds me of radio before Clear Channel. So it makes me excited.
Yeah, absolutely. There's a lot of great DJs going live these days, and just a lot of great music and playlists. So absolutely. Thank you for that. And dance classes being taught for free. That's great. Someone asked what the question is. I actually think there's maybe two questions out. The first one was, what are ways that y'all are shifting in this moment that you hope to continue past the moment? But I'm also curious to know, I guess, maybe different question, same question, different way. Just resilience strategies, you know, what are people doing to stay connected, to feel grounded, to feel like it's possible to envision something past this moment. Let's see, Jackie has looking for opportunities to give what I have in abundance without any expectation of getting anything in return, operating outside of capitalism as much as possible. Absolutely. Yes. Giving without something. I think that's one of those beautiful Buddhist practices of non-attachment. I think maybe non-attachment adjacent, you know, giving without expectation. I like that. Amen. Emily Ann, the importance of reaching out to old friends. Ooh, y'all, let's talk about this for a moment. I love that. And I also realize at some point I might be doing some sort of like sex, love, relationship, kink session about this moment we're in. On the relationship part of that, I've noticed I've both wanted to reach out to old friends and some exes almost in this desperation, like, it's the end of days, let me just make my last reach. And then at the same time, I found myself resentful of hearing from people I haven't talked to in a while because I'm like, oh man, I got to download them on my life from the last time we talked till now, plus everything since COVID-19. It just has felt overwhelming, even though I appreciate the ask. So I'm just giving my own example experience as an example of, by all means, reach out to all the people you want, self-determination, and just putting it out there that some people might have a different response. Some people might respond like, oh, I feel really cared for. You thought about me in this moment. I haven't heard from you. Some people might be like me and be like, oh, that's overwhelming. I hope I don't have to download you from like, we haven't talked in a year or whatever. So just putting that out there. The part about the romance relationship bit is that in my private practice, I've had clients who are like, oh, thank God we broke up before this COVID-19 moment. I would hate to be quarantined with that motherfucker, you know. And then I've had other people being like, oh, I really miss them. You know, it's really scary times. Like, maybe we shouldn't have broken up, you know. So another conversation, just putting out that. Let's see, from Rio, from River, we have fine tuning, listening to my intuition and body. Yes, absolutely. What a great time to pause and listen and say, you know, in this journey to be in right relationship and with ourselves and other people on the planet, and in this journey of being right sized. I don't mean physically, you know. What a great time to, in the service of doing that, is just to pause, listen to your body, listen to your sensations, listen to your intuition. It's a muscle. The more you do it, the stronger it's going to get. And say, you know, is it my day to bear the grocery store? Is it my day to drop off groceries for someone else? Is it my day to just sit here and watch Netflix all day? You know, getting real good with yourself to answer those questions. A Netflix party cosign question. What have you learned? Okay, yep, thank you. Exercising, finding routine. Thank you, Wynn. Appreciate you, boo. Absolutely, getting a good heart rate going up is a beautiful thing. And the parks, well, I don't know. I can't speak. Atlanta parks are different than any other park. So Megan Clark, what you got? I have a note card on my computer that says, okay, things take the time they take, don't they? Don't you worry. Come on, Mary Oliver. Do what you can when you can, while making sure to take good care of yourself and others. Trying to keep that in mind while anxiety is high and needs are big, but trying to keep that with me is long term. Thank you so much for this wisdom. Things take the time they take. Don't worry. Thank you, Mary Oliver. And I'm gonna give an elder Black person's reframe of that, which is my grandmother. She said, haste makes waste, which just means, you know, we don't have to rush into anything in this moment. Like, it feels like there's a lot of immediate needs in this moment, but that doesn't mean that we need to move with immediacy. We can pace ourselves. We can take a breath. We can move with intention. And please don't let all the statistics that are happening, we can be compassionate about it, as we've talked about, but that doesn't mean our care and compassion needs to translate into speed and rushed action. So thank you, Mary Oliver, thank you, Megan Clark, and thank you, Granny Simmons. Being gentle with myself and others. Yes, absolutely. It's high time for being gentle. That's a skill that I feel like collectively as a society we're less skilled on. We know focus, we know ambition, we know perseverance, we know less of centering, presencing, and being gentle. So skill up, people. Tunde, going slow, same thing. I actually have a morning, afternoon, and evening routine. You got Virgo in your chart, Tunde. Come on, routines and lists. Awesome. If routines work for you, do it. If you're overly routines and listed out and you just want to take it slow and see what comes, bless you. Being a Libra, I'll do a little bit of both. Virgo moon, Libra sign. I like to just, I don't know how the next 3 hours is being spent. And then I also like to list it out and plan it out. So whatever works for you. Yeah.
No Virgo, no Virgo.
No Virgo, Tunde?
No Virgo. It's actually more around take my meds, drink a bottle of water, feed my cat, pee first thing in the morning, do something physical in the afternoon, take my evening meds, So now I actually make sure I do those things.
I love it. I love it. Oh, I really love, thank you for speaking up, because those are sort of like self-maintenance, self-sustaining things that I appreciate that's what's on the routine. And it's helpful that we flesh this out, because one person's routine is another person's something else. Thank you, homie. We're all just trying to get through and be human. I know, even if we wish to be part sea turtle or something else. But we're mostly human. Let's see, Shangay, Dr. Shangay says, I hope to continue to develop a sense of how to spend my time and organize my day without buying shit. Oh my God, yeah. Everything being closed made me realize how much I over-identified with the places I want to buy things. Absolutely. And I would say I second this challenge with just, there's still all, even more so now, things that you can get delivered from Devil Amazon. I am a member, and it's still a devil. We all walk with contradictions. I too am just like, wow, why am I buying anything right now except basic needs? But the need is still there. The itch is still there. So that's a great noticing. Tunde says, flirting, it's like before dating apps. Yes. My homie, colleague, sibling from another parent, Ignacio Rivera, is doing some kink, sex, love, and relationship workshop about dating and flirting in these times. I'm sorry, I don't know when, but you can go to their website. Here, I'll find their website and drop it in the chat.
This Sunday, I think, is the first one.
Tunde, can you drop it in the chat?
Yeah, I'll drop it in there.
I appreciate you.
Mhm.
Yeah, some of y'all are just, up in the house all day with your boo. That's its own story. Maybe it's beautiful, maybe it's hard. Some of y'all ain't gonna see your boo for weeks. Some of y'all might cultivate a boo through all this. Some of y'all might be doing all three as we speak. Polyamory is real. So yeah, I mean, I love that those topics are making this, because that is a part of our reality, and also our resilience is how we connect to others romantically and otherwise. What you talking about, Ames? What's up, Ames Simmons? Mr. Simmons. Working from my apartment means I don't get as much activity as otherwise, but I put an alarm on my phone for 10:30 a.m., noon, 3 to remind me to get up from my desk. Yes, and move around, eat, drink water, anything, just stop working. Yes, there's also a great app for that called the Mindfulness App, and it plays this beautiful chime every hour, but not on the hour, because you're not expecting it. And it just goes, boo. And it reminds you to just take a breath, get centered, look away from the screen, whatever you need to do. If you can do that on your own or set a timer, that's excellent. Mindfulness app can help out. Tana, hello there, friend. Device off time. Ooh, that's so hard. Just reading that gave me the heebie-jeebies. That's great. To be honest, it has been so important. I've been also drinking a lot more hot drinks and paying attention to what I'm getting from my food and giving myself breaks when I need. That's beautiful. If you have the capacity to turn your device off, I ain't there yet. I'm addicted. That is great. Do that. Yeah, and being mindful of what we're intaking. So much of our intake, our food and everything right now is so measured, because most of us are having to, plan it out for a long period of time. So it's a great time to just be mindful of what we're putting in our bodies. I didn't say judgmental. Mindful. No judgment, no bad. We got enough of that to us in our communities, but just mindful, taking note. Running outside, balance urgency with agency. Come on, Allison Scott. Balance urgency with agency. I feel like that needs to be a mural. Yes, there is always an urgency, and then we have the agency to respond how we want, when we want.
Got that from you, and you made me think of it during one of our sessions, and I wrote on a Post-it note, and I keep it on my board now in front of me.
Oh, that's a great reminder. Thank you.
And Allison passed it to me, so it's going around the team.
Oh, that's so wild. I don't remember that. I believe you. It's great.
And I'm about to put it on my syllabus now.
Okay.
With agency.
Okay.
Simmons 2020. Get into it. Simmons 2020.
Okay. Somebody mural it out. Let me call occasional superstar. There's a muralist in Atlanta. Let's see. Enjoying just seeing other people, whether it's screen time, walking around outside. Now that I don't get to see people very much, I'm realizing how much I've taken it for granted and how much I get joy from community. Yes, absolutely. Community is definitely healing. And as I mentioned before, that actual touch, our species definitely does need that. So, touch yourself in different ways. Really, like, cut your hair, wash your hair, give yourself a mani or pedi, give yourself some massage. I'm working on some gifts for cranial massages to share with y'all. Really do, like, be mindful of touch. Those sensory things that help come down from panic. I know they're not all access inclusive because they do involve sight and hearing and these things. But the point is, like, even touch, you know, even if you just stick with the dimension of what you can touch different surfaces. Be really intentional with touch because it's something that we're getting less of right now. Heal to End, there's this Heal to End that Babatunde dropped. That's Ignacio Rivera's website on this Sunday afternoon. There's going to be Kink, Sex, Love, Romance webinar that they're going to be leading with someone else. Savannah says, academic types. Yes, academic mutual aid, and there's a link, love it. And we're here at the end of our chat here. It says, one more thing that's been really hard is that folks are still dying and the way we mourn is different. I'm thankful for the virtual spaces to celebrate when our comrade and folks go into glory. Absolutely, absolutely. Thank you for that. We mentioned taking a moment to honor those who've lost their lives. And so however that looks for you. We've got about 10 more scheduled minutes, but I'll just give a few seconds to see if there are any final questions or comments. And if not, it's okay if we wrap up a little early. But any final thoughts? You're so welcome, Jackie. Hi, Jackie. Awesome. Gratitude to y'all. Thanks for coming and participating and being vulnerable and sharing your stories. We'll put a link to this recording probably on our site and our social medias. But yeah, appreciate y'all. Stay tuned to the Front Porch. We have a lot of more great offerings. I personally will be back this time next week, exactly this time, 4 to 5:30 with some of my family relatives from the Eastern Band of Cherokee Indians. We're going to be sharing some wisdom from the mountains for dealing with this time from folks who are rural, Southern, have been removed and came back to their home, have dealt with pandemics before, like smallpox and yellow fever, and all the things, many of the things that, colonized and created genocide for the US. So we're gonna be doing a panel with some folks from Cherokee Nation there next week. So love y'all, appreciate y'all, and until next time, everybody take good care.
You're the bomb, Holiday. Thank you.
Thank you.
Y'all too. Peace. Appreciate you.
Thanks so much.
That's my sibling.